So what we're doing is, if you've just joined us, is we're going into the chat box and we're writing where we're calling in from, whether or not autumn has arrived. Simran is coming all the way from Delhi, where autumn has arrived. It's arrived in Indiana. That's fun. And then what you love about autumn. So let's inspire everybody with some. I love the crisp, clear light, for instance. That's great. And Vandana. Beautiful. Thanks, you guys, for coming. Thanks, Marissa. And Maru, thank you for being with us. Joanne, Janine, Maria, Anna, Denise. So if you haven't, if you're just joining us, we're just going into the chat box while we just wait. We'll just give it another minute while we wait for everyone to join us. And we're going into the chat box and we're saying where we're calling in from. If you don't mind writing whether or not autumn has arrived where you are and what you love about autumn. Thank you, Talia. Is it Talia? Talia from Kansas. Fun. And Vandana, where are you calling in from? Yannick, my beautiful, are you in? You're so sweet. I love you. Back to the moon and back. Are you in Mexico?
No, San Diego.
You're in San Diego.
Yes.
Well, I think autumn has arrived in San Diego, and I think if it's arrived here, it's probably arrived everywhere, huh? This was the last on board.
And Laura, the place is ready for you to go anytime. If you have a group of people who wants to go,
okay,
just let me know. It's in the mountains and you're going to love it. I'll send you pictures.
Okay, so I'm going to take that as Yannick is inviting us all to her place in Mexico.
Yes.
The view of the ocean. We're going to go have an Ayurvedic weekend. How about that?
Oh, let's go.
Let's go. Let's do it. Great. Vandan is calling in from Delhi, where they're just finished with the monsoon season. Okay, good. I'm glad that's finished. I hope there's been no flooding in the south. Sharon is in Coronado. Welcome.
Hi. I don't know why I can't get my picture on.
Oh, somewhere there's something that might say start.
I know. I'm looking.
I know.
So which car did you say your
I don't know what happened here.
1982 blue BMW 526?
Your lights are on.
Yeah, my attorney still has, honey, the
there.
registration and the title, and you have to have that to get so I can get my, go get my license and everything.
Okay, everybody, if
I
can
texted him a
one
month
thing.
ago.
If
But
everybody
his
can
daughter is,
I will do a
he's
general
homeschooling her because all of the Oakland,
because
all of
yeah.
honey, San Francisco Bay Area public schools are
Oh,
all
yeah.
online. And his daughter's a preteen, honey. She's going through puberty.
Oh, I have it.
The beginning of that, as I call it, the breast bumps and all of that, so he's got,
If everybody could mute, that would be helpful. We're hearing a phone conversation, I think. Oh, there we go. I can mute all here. Great. Phoebe, welcome. Phoebe, we're, anybody who has just joined us, we're just about to start. We're just asking that you go into the chat box, and in the chat box, if you don't mind, we'd love to hear where you're calling in from, whether or not autumn has arrived, and what you love about this season. So 3 things: where you are, has autumn come, what do you love about this season of autumn? It's really fun to read some of the things that you guys have written, something like crisp, clear air, these cooler nights, these shorter days. I always love, one thing I love about autumn is the opportunity to come inward, to wrap ourselves in a shawl. This morning I wrapped myself in a shawl for the first time in 6, 7, 8 months. It was so nice to wake up and feel that cool air. So good. Kay, welcome. Thank you for being with us. Kay is, also, I just want to invite you guys, those of you who have very special, beautiful things to share with us. Kay is a beautiful human being who runs a center for women, and it's a women reclaiming their Shakti, women who may have gotten lost in the world that brings us into illusion and delusion. And so, Kay, if you feel like it, you could share that with us. And Leisha is just joining us. Leisha is also a beautiful person who helps with healing. Leisha is a beautiful massage therapist. Anyone who's in San Diego, you want to get her number for sure. Maria's in Fairfax with the autumn colors and yummy food. Yeah, beautiful. And Rebecca's in North England. Autumn really felt present this last fortnight, because in England we have fortnights, not 2 weeks, but fortnights. We love having the evening log fire on in the evening. Beautiful. So thanks, everybody. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I just would say I don't know if there's anyone. Is anyone here very familiar with Zoom and would like to help me with this call? Because I could use somebody to be a co-moderator. And that way we still have people joining. And that way people who are still joining as we get started, if you would, you could be the person who could help them join us. So what I'm going to do is I wait to see if there's somebody who puts their hand up. What I'm going to do is I'll tell you what we're doing today. First, I'm going to just give you a really brief overview to remind you what Ayurveda is, or give you just a little bit of an insight if you're new to Ayurveda. Then I've got a keynote presentation I'm going to run through. So we're going to talk about Ayurveda, the 5 elements. We're going to talk about the seasons. We're going to talk about the 6 tastes. And we're going to talk about autumn specifically. Mostly I'll be talking about food and the 6 tastes, what tastes are appropriate and best for autumn. But also I've got a few self-care tips for you as well. And then it should take us about 45 minutes, and then we'll open up to Q&A. So thank you. There, Kay White has just written thank you. And Leisha too, I just was telling everyone how great you are. So if you feel like sharing, Leisha, you might put an email address in there. So Villa Kalima is a holistic residential treatment center. And Kay is doing amazing work there, so thank you. Okay. All right, well, what's going to happen is I won't be able to let people in once I'm sharing my screen, as far as I know. So we'll just see how that goes. Let's go ahead and start, and let me click play, and participants, move this out of the way. Okay, can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Thank you for making sure everybody's muted, so that's the thing. Okay, so we're gonna have this little bit of a, sorry guys, I've got to come out and let someone in, and that's the issue. That's why I'm asking if somebody can help me with this.
Laura, I'd be willing to help. I'm just not sure if I know how to do it.
Oh, get out of share screen. There we go. Okay.
I could help you, but I'm not sure if I know how to do it.
Thanks, Kay. I will make you a moderator, and I will really quickly talk you through it. So
Okay.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to make you a co-host, and what that will do is if you click on the participants, so down next to the chat box at the bottom, I'm on a computer, not an iPad, so I don't know iPads.
I see it. Okay.
Okay, you click on there, up at the top, if somebody wants to get in, it'll ring a little button, you'll hear a little bell, and then it'll say admit, and that'll be a blue box. And if you click on that blue admit box, just let them in. That's all you have to do.
Okay, I don't see the admit box. I see
No,
invite.
that's because no one's trying to get in right now. But if somebody tries to get in, it'll come up at top. There we go.
Oh, I see them. Okay.
So now you
Great.
want to let them in as a practice?
Did that. It says joining.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Now we're good to go. Thanks, Kay. All right, let's get started here. That's perfect. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Okay, so what are we here for? Hope you're in the right place. Just like they say, sometimes you get on a plane, you think, I hope I'm on the right flight and I land in the right city. So we are here to talk about Ayurveda autumn wellness. And at the end, I am going to do a Q&A where we can open it up to any seasonal wellness or anything that you want to talk about. I'm happy to cover. I just want to remind you of a couple of things. Ayurveda treats a human being. We don't treat a disease. So for instance, a whole group of students at Harvard Medical School went to India to study with someone there. They spent 2 weeks studying. At the end of 2 weeks, they had a big Q&A, and they said to the Vaidya, the Ayurvedic doctor, they said to him, well, we've learned about so many different things, but I still don't know how to treat diabetes, how to treat leukemia, how to treat heart disease, how to treat this, that, and the other thing. And he said, well, then you've learned nothing, because we don't treat diseases, we treat individuals. And when we work with someone, an individual, on restoring optimal health, we look for what's called a pathway. What is the pathway that led to this dis-ease or this imbalance? And how can we reverse that pathway? So it's a step-by-step process that isn't just treating an individual with an imbalance, but we're treating the exact individualistic ways in which that imbalance arose. So that's another thing, is that when people come to me and say, you know, I've got leaky gut, what can I do about it? I can't just write you an email and say, here's what to do about it. I can't even just say to the whole group, here's what you do about it. Somebody asked me to write a book recently. Can you write a book about foods for the different diseases and disorders. And I said, no, we don't do that in Ayurveda. So just to give you that one caveat, the other thing about Ayurveda is that while it is a holistic science treating illness and restoring, primarily it's good with chronic illness versus the Western, which is usually said allopathic medicine is very good with acute illnesses. Ayurveda has a second, you could say, marga, second pathway, which is really about preventative medicine. It's really about restoring wholeness. And why does health matter? Health matters because when you are optimally healthy, you are radiating with life. You are radiating the life force. And Ayurveda comes from the same science yoga, Jyotish, and all the Vedic sciences come from, which is a science based on the idea that you are a cosmic being, that you're born of consciousness and you're alive to creatively participate in the evolution of consciousness itself. You have a big dharma here in this world. And in order to really live your dharma, you really need to be as healthy as you possibly can be. You're bringing alive the power of Creator itself, to live in this world of creation, to live in it with delight and joy and with purpose. So Ayurveda is really about helping us not just live with the absence of disease, but live in the fullest enlivening of consciousness itself. So I hope that's what you've come for. So there we go. So let's go ahead and begin. Let me start by saying I'm really grateful to all of my teachers. Just in terms of who am I wrote a book called Ayurveda Cooking for Beginners. I've been studying Ayurveda for 25 years. I started in my early 20s studying nutrition. And actually in my late teens, I was reading a lot about nutrition and herbs, herbal medicine. I was really fascinated by the mind as well as the body and what could make us really bring us to our greatest and most excellent state of being. I grew up, as I said, in the Chicago area, went to school in Boston, then went to live in London in my entire 20s. And I lived near Neal's Yard, where I was able to really participate in a lot of what they were doing at the time. Neal's Yard is a place that's really worked with different herbs. Ultimately, people know Neal's Yard now as apothecary, but at the time they were doing lots of workshops on Eastern medicine, Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, etc. So I've been really at this for a very long time now. And to that end, I want to really thank my teachers and all of our teachers and Shri Guru. So Ayurveda is based on the idea that there are 5 elements in nature and that we are nature. And there are 5 elements, therefore, in us. And the 5 elements of nature are space, air, fire, water, earth, but they're not separate elements. These are elements that we can find in all complex organisms everywhere in nature. So you could look at a tree and say, what are the elements in a tree? Is there air in a tree? Is there fire in a tree? Is there water? Is there earth? Is there space? And the answer is yes. All 5 elements are present in a tree. All 5 elements are present in the sky. When we see the clouds in the sky, we've got water passing by, and it's passing by thanks to air. Air is the movement, the wind. And in you and me, we have all 5 elements. And what brings balance is when those elements, they're not just 2, so it's not like, a seesaw where we're bringing them into this even balance on the fulcrum, but this is more like the 5 notes that harmonize together in a beautiful symphony. So really, balance or health or wellness is like the song of you, when all the cells in your body are vibrating as one song, and you can almost hear the harmony, you can feel the hum. That's what we're seeking in Ayurveda. So balance is a word we use, but I think harmony is a much better word. Those 5 elements are within you in a unique proportion that is unique to you. So you may have a little more space than the others. You may have a little more air than the others. And whatever you were born with, that's your constitution. The word for that in Ayurveda is prakriti. Your prakriti is the mind-body constitution, proportion of the 5 elements that you were born with. And that is you in perfect balance. So you in perfect balance might be equal amounts air, fire, water, earth, and a little bit more space. That's you in perfect balance. Perfect balance is not when they're all in equal measure. Perfect balance is when you are in your unique prakriti in balance. And what are we in balance with? We're having to harmonize as we go through life. We're harmonizing with the day, with the sun, with the solar energy, with the lunar energy, with night. with the seasons as they go, with the seasons of our own life, with our environment and the people in our environment, with what we're doing and our pressures and our challenges. All of those things are forces that bear upon us, bringing more space or more air or more fire or more water, right? And so we're always in a dynamic harmonizing. We're always like a big part of a big symphony of life, always seeking the note that is on tune and in tune and that will harmonize with all the other notes, right? So when we talk about doshas, we're talking about the bioenergies of these 5 elements combining together to make the primary functions of life, basically, of the biodynamic organism. So we'll talk about that in a second. But just to talk about, we basically, when we're talking about bio energies, we're talking about the energies that make you alive. Without them, you're dead. So you've got movement throughout the body, which relates to the air element. You've got transformation, digestion, and metabolism, which is what we would call the fire element. And you've got water, which is lubricating tissues, lubricating joints, and keeping the body hydrated and functioning. Water and hydration coming in, and the water element helps with elimination as well. So we've got space, air, fire, water, earth. They all matter, but these primary 3, air, fire, water, are the most dynamic, and they relate to the most dynamic aspects of our body. You could say that Ayurveda is physics applied to medicine. So we're always talking about movement and what's happening in the movement in our body and in the movement of us through our lives. When you take the combination of the first 2 elements, air and space, you put those together and you get what's called Vata dosha. Vata sounds a lot like Vayu, and Vayu means wind, movement, air that is moving. So air and space is one bioenergy combined, and in Ayurveda we call it Vata. So Vata dosha governs movement and mobility. Pitta dosha is the combination of fire with a little bit of water. It governs transformation, digestion, and metabolism. And then Kapha dosha is, not fire and water. Kapha dosha, excuse me, this is a typo. Kapha dosha is water and earth. So Kapha dosha is when water and earth combine. And what does that do? That gives us either mud, or that gives us a brick if it's dry. That gives us an adobe house. So you can build with that, and that gives structure. Kapha, Vata dosha gives mobility. Pitta dosha gives transformation. Kapha dosha gives cohesion. What we're seeking is balance. What we're seeking is what's called sattva. So where Ayurveda can get very complex, there's 7 billion people on the planet. We have 7 billion potential protocols. We have herbs. It's said that everything in nature potentially could be a medicine. If it's not yet a medicine, if we don't yet call it a medicine, it's because we haven't yet discovered its medicinal actions. And that makes it very, very, very complex. But the simplicity of it is there's 5 elements, 3 doshas, and we're seeking sattva. Always we're seeking sattva. What restores balance? What restores harmony to you? So remembering that you are your own unique individual, that even all the things I'm talking about as principles may apply to you 100%. They may apply to you maximally or minimally, right? And so everybody is going to be tweaking and adjusting as they go. So the question is really, what dosha are you? And when we ask this question, we're really asking, what prakriti are you? What is the mind-body constitution that you were born with? Are you a little bit more vata, a little bit more pitta, a little bit more kapha? Is there a little bit more earth in you, or water, fire, air, or space? And I do on my website have a quiz. You can just go to lauraplum.com. If you want to write this out, it's /dosha quiz, but it's right there on the homepage. If you just go to lauraplum.com and scroll down, you'll see the button that will link you in. And you can take my quiz. And the nice thing is that at the end, there's a whole page which will give you specific things that you can think about doing to maintain that harmony in your life, whatever the season is. Okay? And thank you, Kay, too, for helping with this. So here's what we're doing today. We're talking about Ayurveda autumn wellness. So just wanted to give that background, that foundational understanding, and then we'll dive in. Autumn, what dosha do you think autumn is? We talked about the different doshas. There's Vata dosha, Pitta dosha, Kapha dosha. Vata is air and space. Pitta is fire with a little bit of water, and kapha is water and earth. And everything in nature has a dosha, including time, including the time of day. Early morning is vata, midday is pitta. Um, early morning is vata, but morning time, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. is kapha. 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., midday is pitta dosha, right? And then it cycles round again. Vata afternoon, kapha in the evening, pitta at midnight. But even time has a dosha. The seasons have doshas. And the key thing is when we understand the dosha of the season, then we understand how traditional people have lived and the kinds of foods that they had out of necessity or out of balance, out of a seeking of sattva, whether they knew that term or not. You'll see this in indigenous people and traditional food cultures. Everywhere in the world, you'll see the food response to the dosha of the season. So you guessed it. Autumn is Vata dosha. And the reason that we think of autumn as Vata dosha is because this is the season when the winds come up, scatter the leaves. The days are shorter, the nights are longer, the days are cooler, and it's a drier season. So what would air and space bring? The elements of air and space are subtle, light, drying, right? They lack moisture. They're up rather than down on the ground, right? Air and space are up here, so less grounded. If you think about the qualities of air and space, then you have the qualities of Vata dosha. And autumn is that, right? Autumn is a season when we feel drier, we're getting more chapped lips, dry skin. The winds are going. And also what happens in autumn, especially as we move into mid-autumn, late autumn, is our immunity is diminished. And you could almost say that Vata is the opposite of a strong immune system. In Ayurveda, the word for immunity is ojas. And ojas means many things. One of the things ojas means is moist, grounded. Ojas is like a bucket of ghee. Ojas is a baby, freshly born. Ojas is 8 drops of nectar that live at the heart. Ojas is this invisible part of you that protects you, that keeps you grounded and content in your body. And therefore, it is also said to be your immunity. And Vata is the season when the immunity or the ojas in the body, the lubricating essence of the nectar of wellness, is diminished. And so Vata season, autumn season, is an essential season of all the seasons. Spring is a season for detoxification. Summer is the season for staying cool, for reducing any inflammation and rust in the body. This is the season to focus on immunity. Of course, why are people saying there may be a second wave of COVID or flu? Because everybody knows that people start to get more sick in the autumn. And Ayurveda's understanding of that is that Vata is drying, cooling, ungrounding, and it tends to be a little bit taking us out of our body. We're less strong in the body. So Vata is great for ideas, for spirituality, for innovation, for all the things that are sort of up here, ideas and inspiration. But Vata is needing to have somebody sort of pull them down by the feet, pull them back into their body. All the foods and all the self-care practices that invite your spirit, your soul, your mind, that invite you back into your body in a comfortable and loving way. That's what we do for Vata. Okay? So what are the foods that we want to eat in our autumn season? Just a really quick review. Again, in Ayurveda, we understand that there are 6 categories of taste. All food fall into one of these 6 categories. And the categories are sweet, sour, salty, pungent, astringent, bitter. Umami is kind of a mixture of a few of these. So umami's in there, but not as a standalone category in Ayurveda. So sweet, sour, salty, pungent, astringent, and bitter. And all 6 tastes make a satisfying, healthy meal. The 6 tastes are understood to be made up of the 5 elements, and therefore they feed those elements in the body. The sweet taste is made up of earth and water elements, and therefore it feeds the earth and water element in you. If you want more bulk, eat more sweet. But if you want less bulk, go to the opposite end of the spectrum. Then you want to eat more bitters or astringent that are more air and space, that will lighten you up or detoxify. The ones in the middle, sour, salty, pungent, help boost digestion. Okay, so I'm going to give you just a few examples. To eat all 6 tastes means to eat a meal where you might have rice for the sweet, you might have vinegar as a dressing, that might be sour. You might squeeze your salad with lemon, that's a sour taste. Might add a little pink salt or a little bit of seaweed when you're cooking your beans. Your pungent taste would be if you cook some onion or garlic, or you add in some ginger or some cinnamon, any one of your spices. Astringent is in this picture. You've got leafy greens, dal, beans, mung bean. Those are all astringent taste. And then bitter, I think I'm seeing radicchio there, or endive. Those are more of the bitter tastes. Aloe is bitter. Dark pure chocolate is bitter. The rind of citrus is bitter. And then the skin of fruit and vegetables is also astringent. So when you cook your beets, don't take the peel off, just scrub them clean. When you cook your carrots, don't just scrub them just to get them clean. You don't have to take all the skin off because you want that astringent. Other things that are astringent also are seeds. Seeds are very astringent. So dal, seeds, peanut butter is astringent. That's why your mouth squeezes together. Astringent is drying. So sweet, sour, salty, pungent, astringent, and bitter. And if we go back up to the, I'm not sure I can get up there, there we go. If we go back up to the elements that are in each taste, then you're going to get a sense of whether each taste is cooling or heating, whether it's drying or lubricating, right? Whether it's grounding or ungrounding. So if a Vata person eats, for instance, we always say, the classic example of a Vata meal is they like to have popcorn for dinner. They'll have salad for lunch and popcorn for dinner, and maybe skip breakfast because they're busy, right? So there you've got a Vata person who's mobile, busy, not having breakfast, and emphasizing the mobility, emphasizing the irregularity of that mobility. Then for lunch, they're having salad. Salad is astringent and bitter, cold, light, and somewhat hard to digest. And then for dinner, they're having popcorn. Popcorn is light. Corn is a bit heating, so at least there's that, but popcorn is light and airy. So now they have fed their dosha, meaning they've fed themselves with the things that are like themselves. And in Ayurveda, we do say like likes like. Like attracts like. We tend to go in the direction of our prakriti or our dosha. So Vata people they are made up of movement. They love to move. The number one thing that grounds a Vata is regularity and consistency. The other thing that grounds a Vata is warmth. And the other thing that's really good for Vata is lubrication, right? Because they tend to be ungrounded, irregular, cold, and dry. So they need which tastes are ideal for them. Now remember, we want all 6 tastes in a meal to fully feed and nourish the body. But there are 3 tastes that a Vata should lean into, Vata dosha people, and that we will lean into now that it's autumn. What are those tastes, do you think? The 3 of the 6 tastes that are ideal for autumn or a Vata dosha person are sweet, sour, and salty. Why? Because sweet is grounding and lubricating. It's got the earth that grounds and the water element that is hydrating, moistening, and lubricating. The sour taste, and I'll tell you examples of what these foods are, but the sour taste combines earth and fire, so that it will help warm the Vata dosha person, and the earth will be grounding for them. And then the salty taste is water and fire, so again, lubricating and warming. So the Vata dosha person gets to eat foods that are sweet tasting, and they get to supplement or aid the digestive capacity of those foods by adding some sour and adding some salty. Now, what does that mean? Are they just going to eat salt, yogurt, and rice? Kind of, they could. Actually, salt, yogurt, and rice would probably be a good meal for them if they don't feel well. One of the things that sometimes a Vata person that I know with my clients, they do like is literally just, and this is something in Ayurveda, if somebody's very sick, very depleted, they will be fed rice soup. It's called kanji. It's just rice made with 5 times the water. And you add a little bit of salt to that. So, because it's so easy to digest. The sweet taste means this is a category of food. And this is the largest category of food. It's fruits, it's root vegetables, it's grains, it's nuts, it's meats, and it's dairy. Cheese and yogurt are fermented, so they start to move into a sweet, sour. And foods can have 2 tastes or 3 tastes to them. Some of the top herbs in Ayurveda are herbs that have 5 tastes. They combine all 5 tastes, and therefore they're able to feed, nourish your body very potently. So, but generally speaking, fruits, of course, are sweet. Root vegetables are sweet. Grains, nuts, meats, and dairy. The sour taste is citrus, lemon, lime, grapefruit. Tomato has some sour to it. All things that are fermented are sour. So, yogurt is fermented. Kimchi is fermented. Right? Vinegar is fermented. Alcohol is fermented. All of that falls into the sour taste. And we know that sour really powerfully boosts digestion. Sour is made up of the element of earth and fire. It is the taste that most aggravates Pitta dosha and that most balances Vata dosha. Vata needs the earth and the fire. And then salty. So salty, of course, is salt, but also seaweed. Salt mostly comes from the sea. So anything that comes from the sea, which is the salt deposits, for instance, the pink salt that we get out of the Himalayas, seaweed that we can sometimes cook in or make a nori out of. And then fish, of course, has some salt to it. Fish being kind of a meat. Fish is considered kind of a meat, so it's sort of sweet and salty. And then celery has a lot of natural salt to it, which is interesting. Celery is a bitter, astringent, and salty. So what about spices? Now, spices is in the category of pungent. And so we don't say that Vata can't have pungent, but we don't call it one of the top 3 categories for Vata. But it is really an important thing to consider. I just want to consider it in moderation. In autumn, if you think about what are the foods that people love in autumn, I've been seeing a lot of people talk about how they love their pumpkin lattes, or they love their chai, or they're looking forward to pumpkin pie, or they're looking forward to apple pie. What are the spices that go in to chai or pumpkin pie or apple pie? The spices that we traditionally use in autumn are the spices that are excellent for Vata dosha. They're sweet and gentle spices. They're not aggravating. So we're not having raw onion, we're not having raw garlic, we're not dousing things in red pepper, black pepper. Even just a little bit of black pepper is fine, but not too much. The ideal spices for this season are cinnamon, cardamom, nutmeg, ginger, ideally. And then coriander is often used in Ayurvedic foods for Vata dosha. And these other ones as well. Mustard seed is used more in South India. But the reason why is because, especially for the person who has Vata dosha, more pungent spices, stronger spices, black pepper, red pepper, onion, garlic, etc., even clove, those can really be upsetting to the Vata dosha. They will feel tired after they've eaten those kinds of spices, or they will have gas, or they will have diarrhea, or they will have or they'll have just an irritation in the gut. Your digestive system produces a mucosal lining to protect the epithelial layer of your gut. And so kapha tends to have more mucus. Kapha dosha, with being the water and air element, they tend to have more mucus in their body everywhere generally. And so they generally need more spice. But Vata dosha tends to have, everything is irregular in them. So they may have some mucosal lining in the esophageal layer, but then not so much in the colon, right? So we have to be careful with Vata dosha. A little pungent, sweet and mild will help to stimulate their digestive fire. So it is good for them. And also when they're taking a lot of sweet, which might mean almond milk, so they could easily have an almond milk where they're going to stir in some cardamom. Sweet taste is heavy and cold. And so the sweet taste does need some gentle sweet spice. Again, not too much because it'll overwhelm the digestive fire, but enough to really help digest those heavier foods. Hope that makes sense. So this is the season for the Vata spices. which, we think of them as sweet spices because we often add them to sweet foods. Cinnamon is excellent for blood sugar, but it is a little bit drying. So it's great to add to lubricating foods, foods that already have a lot of moisture in them. Cardamom, on the other hand, helps to moisten. So cardamom is really good on its own. It's a really excellent spice, great one to add to oatmeal or your breakfast grains. And then nutmeg, just to say on these last two, nutmeg is excellent because it soothes the nervous system. So it's really an excellent one for nighttime. It helps you sleep. It's sleepogenic, and it helps to really calm anxiety. Finally, ginger is really excellent. It's really great for upset stomachs. It's great for nausea. It's great for feeling out of balance. And those are some of the things that Vata dosha can experience. Going back up there, I could go to mustard seeds. Really helps with digestion. Really helps when you're having beans, etc. So remember that autumn goals, according to Ayurveda, are warm, grounding, hydrating. That will nourish the body, and that will strengthen your immunity. In the spring, when I did the spring webinar, and I was talking about how do we strengthen immunity, especially then when COVID was just present, we really all needed to strengthen our immunity and really talk about how do we go through this world with all of its pollutants and all of its stress and still maintain a very strong immune system. Think about your immune system as your protection and being fully grounded and fully alive, fully in your body. So spring immunity is totally different from autumn immunity. Spring immunity is about detoxifying, purifying, lightening up. In this season, we're really looking at how do I feel more comfortable in my body? This is what's so beautiful about autumn, is that we get to enjoy sweet tastes and gentle spices and chais and all those wonderful things. Warm, grounding, hydrating. Okay, so here's just some of the lists that you might think about for autumn foods. This is sort of an autumn harvest list, but these are the foods that we want to look at. Now, sesame, so one thing that I mentioned is that seeds generally fall under the category of astringent. So do beans and legumes fall under the category of astringent. So why have I added mung dal and lentils? Why have I added hummus or tahini? Tahini is made from sesame seeds. Why have I added those? Those are actually not in the category of sweet, sour, salty, but I've added them because this is a season to be cooking your foods. Do you think about traditional people? And I was just in dialogue with one of you yesterday via email. If you think about traditional people who lived in Northern Europe, for instance, people in Poland, people in Russia, people who lived where it gets cold in the autumn season. Even our grandparents, people who lived in Kansas or anywhere, where it does get cold in the winter. What were they doing now? Harvesting the food, drying the grains, fermenting the vegetables, canning the tomatoes, right? And curing meats and things like that. And then they're picking root vegetables, potatoes that are going to last for months and months and months. And then what are they going to do when they pull those out of the pantry? For the most part, they're going to cook them. They're going to cook the potatoes that have been sitting in a box in the pantry, right? Fermenting is a form of pre-cooking. Fermenting is the acids and enzymes are starting to eat away at the foods, and then you stop it before it goes bad, right? And you also add salt, and that's how you stop it, keeping it going bad. So the fermenting that was done in the autumn is giving the foods a sour and a salty taste. Okay, but to have all six tastes, we can add in the mung dal, we can add in the lentils, we can look for some leafy greens, or we can shave some citrus rind over our foods to get those bitter tastes in. So the mung dal, lentils, hummus, tahinis, those are basically rounding out your six tastes, but also having cooked foods. And you're going to have those with rice, or you're going to have those with a grain. You're going to have those with root vegetables that you can roast up. And then tahini. Tahini is a seed. So you can certainly have seeds in autumn, but just remember they're more of the astringent. So have seeds and nuts together, right? You can have apple, but if you have it raw, it's cooling. So shake some cinnamon over your apple slices that you have as a snack. You can warm apple or pear and have that as a beautiful stewed fruit for breakfast, or put that in with your oats. Add cardamom. But back to tahini. Tahini is the one seed that breaks the rules. It's called prabhav, and things that have special, unique characteristics have prabhav, a special light to them, you might say. Sesame seed is heating. Sesame is warming, whereas most seeds are cooling. Sesame is warming. So tahini, which is made from sesame seed, is actually warming. And that's why if you add tahini, right, when you do make your hummus, that's great. Or you can make a tahini dressing for your greens. You can make a tahini dressing for your mung dal, for your bowl of lentils. Focus for Vata dosha on small beans, not large ones. Okay, it's focusing not on the big, even garbanzo, even, I know garbanzo goes into hummus, but there's the tahini there and the other spices that make it probably work. But if you do have problems with hummus, it may be because of the chickpea. So large beans are harder to digest. The small baby beans that cook up really quick are better for you, and you want to cook them with a lot of oil, coconut oil or ghee, and a good amount of spice, especially the spices that are good for Vata dosha, because that means they probably are carminative, and that means they'll bring down the gas. Okay, so finally, you are what you digest. Ayurveda says you are not what you eat. What you eat is just food that goes in your mouth and into your belly. What turns that food from a grape or a tomato or a roasted carrot into an eyeball or a knee or a liver or a heart is your process of digestion. And Vata dosha, because it's very irregular, tends to have very irregular digestion. They tend, you know, you've got a Vata dosha condition, Vishama Agni we call it, when you have gas or bloating, when you can eat something and sometimes you feel fine and sometimes you don't, you just can't figure out what's the trigger. The number one thing that will ground, stabilize, and improve the health of Vata dosha person is to do everything with regularity. Eat your breakfast same time every day, lunch same time every day, dinner same time every day. The second most important thing is to cook your own meals. And the third most important thing is that they're warm, grounded, and gently spiced. Okay? So regularity and consistency. Cook your meals. You are not a raw foodie. Raw food is not made for Vata dosha. If you want a little raw food, it's maybe 1/3 or 1/4 of what you're eating. The rest of the meal is cooked. And you stir it in. So sometimes I'll put my khichdi after I've made a bowl of rice and beans. I put it on top of a bowl that has some greens in it. So it goes on top, the greens then get steamed, you stir it in, right? So it's like a very slight cook to those greens. So remember, number one, most important thing is regularity. It may sound crazy, but remember this is physics. This is about movement and dynamics. And when you can move your Vata dosha with regularity, you're a gentle breeze, a balm for all. You are the halcyon days, right? Rather than a tornado, rather than a hurricane, rather than the volatility of imbalanced Vata dosha, right? You want to be that gentle breeze. And that comes from even, steady flow. 2, cook. 3, consider making your foods warm, grounding, and gently spiced. Okay? So I just wanted to cover this. We're looking at the spices, the kitchen support for Vata, and the Vata season is spices, good oils for hydration, and the vinegars or the tamaris or even the misos that will help bring in some of that sour ferments, etc. that bring in sour. So gentle warmth, hydration, and sour for digestion. Okay. Now I've got 3 self-care ideas for you. If I took all of the self-care, the entire medicine kit of self-care that Ayurveda offers us, and I picked the 3 that are my favorite for autumn. It's these 3. It's sesame oil massage every single morning after you wake up. It's Epsom salt baths in the evening. Long, beautiful soak with your favorite essential oil. Lavender is a good one for autumn. And pranayama, a certain particular pranayama that I'll come to next. This webinar is going to be up on my website. You'll be able to review it if you want. But sesame oil is warming. All the other oils are cooling. If you are pitta dosha, if you have a tendency to skin disorders, rash, acne, some kind of breakout, eczema, skin allergies, then sesame oil is probably not your best friend. Then you want to look at coconut oil or almond oil. But if you are Vata dosha, or if your skin is generally healthy and not pitta, then this is the season to move from coconut oil of the summer to sesame oil for autumn and winter, because sesame oil is warming. Sesame oil has also got, even though it's a heavy oil, that's another reason it's good for Vata, it's very grounding. brings them back down into this, back down onto the ground, onto nature, into this world. But it's also got the smallest molecule. So while it's heavy, it's got a tiny molecule that's able to penetrate the epidermal layer, get into the bloodstream, and then pass the blood-brain barrier. Studies out of New Zealand are showing that sesame oil in a daily topical application, that means massage, can halt the progression of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And they are studying to see if it can do more than halt the progression, but maybe even work as prevention. And that means you put sesame oil on your body every morning before you've added turmeric or any herbs. Sesame oil all by itself is nourishing the brain to help prevent neurological disorder. It's pretty powerful. So it's a very, very nourishing oil. Really considered the top oil for Abhyanga in Ayurveda, again, unless you are Vata Dosha. So start at the top of your head, make sure you get your ears, you circle on the joints, long strokes on the bones. Get a little bit in your ear, a little bit in your nose, and all the way down to your feet and your toes where there's a lot of nerve endings. If you don't want to get oil in your hair, just do a little dot at the very top, middle part, and then around the ears and behind the ears. You do it before you shower. You do your massage. You let it sit 15 to 20 minutes so it can absorb and soak in. You get into the shower. Before you get under the shower, you just let the steam open the pores fully so the oil can get in more deeply. What's excess on your skin will get washed out under the shower. The rest will go into nourish. So the other thing is that in the morning, your body's pushed toxins out of your skin. Your body's doing all that repair overnight, sending toxins to the organs of elimination. That's your colon, that's your tongue, and that's your skin. Oil, therefore, massage in the morning will help to remove those toxins from the skin by the oiling and then the showering. That's why we do it before. Sometimes Vata people like to do it again after the shower. That's perfectly fine, but usually you're really still moist after the shower. And sometimes Vata people will say to me, I like to do oil massage before bed. Best thing is to massage the feet before bed and then cotton socks over the feet. That'll help bring the heat down. That'll help ground you at the end of the day. That'll help prepare you for a nice, good sleep. Another thing is a sleep tonic. I have 2 sleep tonic recipes on my blog, foodalovestory.com. So the other self-care, which I think is really excellent to help Vata get a good sleep with that irregularity. Sometimes they're restless. Their sleep can be really out of regularity. Again, regularity is the key for optimal health. Your body has molecules that read the sunlight and read the darkness. And your body wants you to be in bed asleep by 10 p.m. and up by 6 a.m. And if you're going to sleep at 9 and then 11 and sometimes don't fall asleep till 2, your body isn't knowing what it's supposed to be doing for you. So your clock is your best friend. I know Vata likes to be free, but you can be free within the regularity of breakfast and lunch and dinner at the same time every day and bedtime at the same time every day. Other than that, enjoy your freedom. Epsom salts will help you sleep. Epsom salts are full of minerals that help the body. That's very, very grounding for Vata dosha. Helps the body with energy, helps the body with detoxification and purification, but it also helps with the rest and digest response, the sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. So long soak, 15, 20 minutes in an warm Epsom salt bath, again with your favorite essential oil is really, really helpful for Vata dosha, very hydrating. And then finally, pranayama, especially nadi shodhana. Why? Because Vata dosha is the element of air. And the air element can get going in all kinds of different directions. Pranayama is breathing practices. It's a way of stabilizing and regulating those winds, those wild airs. So it's working with those wild airs. It's sort of like taming a tornado, you might say. It's sort of taking a hurricane and just sort of calming it and grounding it. And then optimizing your own internal airs or vayus that will help the proper flow, because ultimately health is optimal flow. Optimal health is the optimal flow of energies in the body. Nadi Shodhana balances the solar and lunar energies in the body. And that will help to balance the right and left hemispheres of the brain. And that will help bring optimal hormonal, emotional, and mental wellness as well as physical wellness. So Nadi Shodhana is to take a Vishnu mudra. You take the first two fingers, tuck them into the pad of your thumb, and your thumb and your ring finger go to the outside of your nose, just at this crease. And you can even come just below this nose bone, and there's a tiny little baby marma point there, an energy point. So all you're going to do is you're going to inhale. If you want to, you can close your eyes and do this with me. You're going to inhale through both nostrils, pause to hold your breath a second, or count, and then with your thumb, close your right nostril and exhale left. And then inhale through that left nostril, pause, hold for a count, and change so that your ring finger closes your left nostril, and you open the right nostril, and now exhale right. Then inhale right, hold for a count, close the right nostril, exhale left. Inhale left, hold for a count, exhale right. And now deepen that breath. Make that inhale as long as you can. Inhaling, hold, exhale left, make that really long. And as you do this breathing, now you can start to count it. So as you inhale, count your in-breath, whatever it comes to. Remember that number, hold for 1, and make your exhale the same count as the inhale. Whatever the number was, just make them the same. And make the inhale now on this side the same, and the exhale the same. So the inhale and the exhale are the same length. The right nostril, left nostril breath is the same length. We'll do one more round. And then you can relax your right hand and just keep your eyes closed, breathing now through both nostrils. Noticing how you feel. See if just by the powers of observation, you can make the breath even through both nostrils. Even watch the breath as it flows in the nostrils and up to the point of convergence at the top of your nose, at the eyebrow center, or what we call Ajna chakra, Ajna chakra. Hold it there, nourishing the mind, and then exhale, release. Bring your palms together and rub them back and forth, eyes still closed. When you feel warmth or heat in your hands, bring your hands to cover your eyes. And then flutter open your eyes. And you can release your hands. Nadi Shodhana Pranayama has been shown in research to help balance hormones, to help reduce depression, to be particularly excellent for women, to help to re-regulate the nervous system so that sympathetic and parasympathetic work better, that we have the energy to run, to think, to be active and dynamic when we need to, and to rest and digest when that's what's needed. Nadi Shodhana Pranayama is a simple, gentle practice that feels so subtle and so easy and so nourishing, you can almost not imagine its potency. It's a very powerful practice, and number one for this season to restore balance. Really great to have that time as well. Morning, if you want, you can do it morning at sunrise or when you wake up, and then evening at sunset, so that you do it at the balance points of the day when solar and lunar energies meet, and you balance the solar and lunar energies within you. Give you what you need, energy when you need it, rest and digest when you need that. Okay? So finally, I just want to say there's more resources on my blog, food-alovestory.com. There's over 250 recipes for every season, every dosha. There's tips, ideas about the doshas. There's also a link to the dosha quiz from my blog. And it looked like this at one point when I took this. I think this is from last winter, 2 winters ago. And there's also my book, which has recipes for every season, recipes for every meal, and seasonal spice blends, lots and lots of information about the doshas, as well as lists of foods, foods for the doshas, foods for the seasons, and a dosha quiz in there as well. And you can get it on Amazon.com. Finally, I have started something 2 years ago called Beta Wise. That's Ayurvedic Integrated Nutrition. If you want to learn how to share this with others, if you want to learn how to be a nutrition coach, we start our next training in February. It is a professional training. It's designed for people who are either yogis or health coaches, or I have people who do acupuncture, Eastern medicine, etc. It's a way of really, even people who have studied Ayurveda come and join this class, because there has been less focus just with allopathic medicine. There hasn't been as much focus on nutrition in the professional trainings. If you want to just learn for yourself and your family, you can do it in level 1, and level 2 is where we really teach the consulting and coaching practices. And then also, I do have an autumn cleanse coming up. It's starting next weekend, next Saturday, October 3rd. It's really inexpensive. It's only $49, but you get another 20% off with that code autumn20. It's a week long, and every single day we have classes in Ayurveda, food, self-care, meditation. We have yoga. We have an evening guided meditation for you as well. It's every day we get on for an hour, and it's really, really, really beautiful. The community that gathers around this is a lot of fun. Maybe Yannick can put it in the chat box, what you think. I know I've really enjoyed doing this. This year is the first year I ever did it, where we're on Zoom every single morning, and it's in my kitchen showing you different kitchen demos and self-care demos, and it's really a lot of fun. And I've really, really enjoyed being with you all in community for it. So here's how you can find me. My website is lauraplum.com, myfoodblog.com. My food blog is Food Love Story. I'm on Instagram now, food.at.love.story, because that was the best we could find. I just started that recently, and that's just food and recipes, about 4 or 5 times a week. And then, of course, at Laura Plum on Instagram. My at Laura Plum is a little bit more just my writing, my thoughts, and my general Vedantic musings. And of course, you can email me, laura@lauraplum.com. Okay. So let's open it up to Q&A now. Thank you again to Kay. Thank you so much for helping to be my co-host. Let me go back here. And we will open this up here. So best thing for me actually is if you don't mind putting your question in the chat box, that way I can read it and everybody can see the question as well. And it would be helpful too if somebody feels like writing out some notes from the answer, but you don't have to. So Maria, the book's for sale in Portugal. The book has been published translated into German now. If you wanted to get it in Portugal, you might have to go to the amazon.co.uk, because it is for sale in the United Kingdom, and then have them sell it to you. But I have considered, very lightly, but I have considered maybe it's time to move to Portugal, and I can bring a box of books with me. I hear Portugal's a beautiful place to live. Okay, so thank you very much. Some of you have said thank you. Sprouts, organic, unrefined cold presses. Looks great for me. Thank you. Thank you, Gabriele. And so let me just go back up because there's some questions here. What is Hing? Thanks for asking the question, Rocio. Let me say something about Hing. If you were to go to the Banyan Botanicals website, you can get something, it's called Hingvastak. Another word for it is asafoetida. You can find it in Asian markets because the Chinese use it as well. So you can usually find it in Asian markets. You might find it in Middle Eastern markets and in your local region. Or you can get Hingvastak from Banyan, which is a blend of Hing, asafoetida. Plus I think they've got cumin and some other spices that are particularly good for people who are prone to gas and bloating. Hing and asafoetida smell like sulfur. They smell like rotten eggs. You've got to keep them in a really tight container or they'll smell up your kitchen. But they're really good to add to beans. You don't cook with the beans. You make what's called a tarka. You melt, while your beans are cooking, you melt your ghee or your coconut oil, and you add in your favorite spices, and you add in some hing. You saute that for about a minute, and then when the khichdi is done, you pour it over, stir it in, and that's how you work with that. And that helps powerfully to digest beans. Really good for people. I add it to almost every time I do a khichdi, but it's really good, especially for Vata dosha, who has usually a harder time digesting beans. Okay, did I go up there, Carmen? Yes, Megraj, thank you for joining us. This is recorded and it's going to be on my website from tomorrow. Good. So somebody says it's in the wet season. So if you're down under, you might be you're in spring, and I do have a spring replay on my website as well. So Sally loves cardamom. I love you. If I have extra once added to a dish, you rub it in your hair. What a great idea, because then you'll get that nice smell of cardamom. I think one of the best ways to have cardamom right now is in tea. You can make a straight up cardamom tea. You just, crush the pods a little bit with the back of a spoon or a knife or your fist, and then throw them in with some boiling hot water. Just 2 or 3 cardamom pods, and you can do that with 4 to 6 to 8 cups of water, depends how long you let it steep. The other thing is you can do it with almond milk and make it more of a chai. Cardamom is a central spice in chai, of course. Sesame oil is the choice of oil in autumn for Vata dosha, yes. And that is for topical application, which we call abhyanga, or massage. But for cooking, ghee or coconut oil, we do want to work with oils. Remember, you want high heat oil for cooking, and low heat oils are for after you've cooked the meal. So once you put it in a bowl, then you can add olive oil or the other kinds of oils. Avocado oil is also good for this season. Joyce asks if we are walking in the AM, better to do the oil massage before. Yeah, definitely. If you're saying you can massage, then walk, then shower, yes, definitely. It's really good to do the massage before yoga. Thank you. Thanks. You can use the same cooking oil that you use. If the sesame oil is good enough for cooking, it's good enough for your body. What you put on your body will absorb into your body without the favor of digestion. So it should be better than what you would eat. It should be high quality. If you want to find organic sesame oil at your grocers, that absolutely would work, but make sure it's organic and it's a good quality. Great, Judy, thank you for being with us. So Tamara is primarily kapha, grounding earthy foods, pack on the pounds, sweet foods, pack on the pounds. So look at my spring webinar, that's for kapha. You can cut back on portions, but for instance, think about Vata dosha should eat like half rice, a quarter dal, a quarter leafy greens. Kapha should eat 3/4 dal and leafy greens and a little bit of rice. And you should also add less oil and add really strong pungent spices. So it's about proportions. It's also about, proportions within the meal as well as portions. And it's also about spice. Kapha really wants to spice it up. So Rebecca, I have fantastic. Okay, thank you. Yeah, Rebecca just finished our AIN Ayurvedic Integrated Nutrition, and she's a really beautiful yoga teacher in the north of England. And I just love how she's brought the Ayurveda in, doing even retreats by Zoom, where they do yoga first and then they'll cook their breakfast together. It's really beautiful how she's integrated the Ayurveda and the yoga. I love that. Okay, so Renee says if you're a Vata Kapha, if you're Kapha in the fall time, you can follow a Kapha diet. So in the autumn, any single season, that's where I was starting, you're having to adapt your individual unique self to general principles. So the things I've been talking about here are general principles for autumn and Vata dosha. And whatever your dosha is, for instance, if you're Pitta, you don't want to add a lot of spice, and sour is the most aggravating taste for you. But sweet is very balancing for Pitta. So Pitta is going to stay with the sweet tastes, roasted root vegetables, excellent for Vata, excellent for Pitta. But with Pitta, you don't need to add too much spice. You might add cooling spices like dill, mint, fennel, and you can add coconut oil. So you've got a roasted sweet potato, slit it open, put in some coconut oil, toss in some, dill or fennel or whatever, even a little bit of cardamom, and you've got something perfect for Pitta in the Vata season. But Kapha is going to need to think, as I said, Kapha needs to think, what's good for Kapha? What are the right portions? What's the right proportion? So Kapha focuses on pungent, astringent, and bitter, and less of the sweet and more of stronger pungents. So thank you, Sally. Yeah, thank you. The autumn cleanse is really fun for the daily connection. That's true for me. Thank you, Phoebe. Love to you. Thank you. Thank you. Asya, is that how you say your name? It's a beautiful name. Okay, any other questions? Let me see. 29, oh my gosh. Oh, in Italy. Okay. I think that's Phoebe saying, I remember living in Milan and November was so rainy. So it's true that in some places, we get our rains in San Diego. Fortunately, we get rains sometime in the autumn as well. But then you can think about the variation, the variables. San Diego's late autumn, early winter, we don't get as cold as some people get, but we have a lot of variation. And it's the variation that depletes the immune system. So one day we have a Santa Ana, it's really hot and dry. Next day it rains. And that your body is constantly having to adapt to the temperature. You've got a a temperature regulating engine inside of you. And it's having to work extra hard. That's energy depleting. So think about that too, where you live. If it rains a lot, sure, you might have more of the moisture in your autumn season, but it might go back and forth between wet and dry. It might go back and forth between cool and warm. So your body's having to catch up with that. That's depleting, and that is also Vata. Okay, Michelle, Ayurvedic birth chart, 2 water, 1 earth. Yeah. So can I tell you, because I know that you have a specific thing, which is you have Saturn in your 6th house, which is the house of digestion. And Saturn is Vata. So you may have, this is another technical thing when we start to bring in Jyotish. Jyotish can see a person's prakriti, mind, body, constitution, but it can also see specifics within that. So you might have a Vata Kapha or a Pitta Kapha constitution with a Vata digestion. So you have a Vata digestion.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I would love to eat rice again. I'm trying to bring it back into my diet. And I was just wondering, because Jeffrey said to me, I thought I was total Vata. Jeffrey said you are 2 earth or 2 water and 1 earth in your birth chart.
Right. Yeah, so Jeffrey is a man named Jeffrey Armstrong, and if anybody wants to look him up, he's jeffreyarmstrong.com. And he is my first Jyotish teacher.
Pues ve quitándole tu de este.
So Chris, let's meet Chris. Thank you. This would get a little bit more specific that you and I should talk about together, I think.
Okay.
But I think
Thank you.
for the purposes of this webinar, yeah, I see when I look at you here, you look more Pitta and Vata. But I know because she just sent me her birth details, because we're kind of going back and forth in conversation. And I do know this one thing about you, and I don't remember the rest of your chart. I just remember, I think you remember, I was like, oh, aha, Saturn. You are in a Saturn period of your life, and Saturn is in your 6th house of digestion. So what's up for you right now is tools. Saturn wants us to work hard to find the tools to cultivate optimal digestion. And Saturn teaches patience. So he doesn't give us the answer right away. He makes us work for it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Laura,
Yeah.
when you make homemade ghee, I've been doing that, but how do you make sure you have all the dairy out? I put it through a double strainer after I cook the grass-fed butter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all you need to do is cook it until you can see. So sattva, I mentioned that word earlier, is a word that is said to mean light, clear, balanced, peace, contentment. Light and clear, that's why ghee is sattvic. It's light and it's clear. Butter is cloudy. Butter is kapha and kaphagenic. So when we cook, we clarify butter, as long as you keep it on a very low flame until it's absolutely clear. Once you strain it, the yucky stuff, the stuff we don't want, will stick. It's the sticky, it creates ama. And ama is considered to be sticky, right? So it will stick to each other. It'll stick to the bottom of the pan. It'll stick to the sides of the pan. It'll stick to your cheesecloth if you use it. And anything that might get through will fall to the bottom.
Okay.
And so once you put it in a jar, if you do see any little dark pieces or something at the bottom, don't eat that. Eat everything else, just don't eat what's at the bottom. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. And you're grain free since 2012. That's great. So, there's a great seminar that was just done by an Ayurvedic sage called Rice is Nice. And he's showing how rice doesn't have basmati rice is low glycemic. It feeds all the B vitamins. It's got a teeny bit of protein. It's easy to digest. It's a very nourishing food. So I don't know, maybe you stick your toe in.
Okay.
Try a little bit of rice. Try a little bit of basmati and see if that feeds you. It's so good for Vata and Pitta dosha.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, quinoa is people will use quinoa as an alternative to grain, but remember quinoa is astringent, so it's aggravating to Vata. Buckwheat is great. I love buckwheat, but it's light, so it's not exactly grounding for Vata. Okay, so just bearing in mind when we talk about health in Ayurveda, we're not just saying, oh, I'm not going to eat this, so I'll eat that. We're saying, what is the energy of that food? What is that going to do to my body and my mind? Right. So when we look for substitutes, we have to look for, if we're going to substitute dairy, Ayurveda loves dairy, but they always say that goes back to the days when you had one cow and you waited and took the milk after the cow fed the calves, etc. But if we're going to replace, if we don't have ghee, how are we going to get the acids that are in ghee? Because they're not in coconut oil. So if you're going to use coconut oil because you're 100% vegan, then you're going to have to think about adding a little bit more spice to balance it out, because what makes ghee so special is the butyric acid in it that helps to heal the epithelial layer of the digestive tract while stimulating Agni. And other oils don't do that. Other oils act like water, which is good, lubricating, soothing, etc. But they don't stimulate. Elizabeth,
So Laura,
yes.
if I was going to cook with coconut oil, what spices would you recommend for Vata?
If you're going to cook with, that's a great question. You can add any of the ones that I mentioned. So you could add fennel. You could add cumin. I didn't mention that's a good one. Ginger is one of the best for ginger, cardamom, coriander are the best for Vata. I also think nutmeg is the best because it's so soothing. So ginger, cardamom, coriander, fennel, and it depends. You can also add the aromatic herbs, mint. Basil is really excellent for Vata dosha. Dill is something I really like. You can even add a little bit of oregano, thyme. Those are pretty pungent. Those are stronger, more for kapha, but a very little bit. Marissa, thank you so much. I still remember that class too. That was when our celebration of Susie's when they closed, which was sad. So thank you very much. And OG Yoga. Marissa's mentioning OG Yoga. It's a nonprofit here in San Diego that delivers yoga to people who otherwise wouldn't be able to get it, especially to incarcerated people and their families. Very beautiful that you just did that. Thank you. So it's a very trauma-informed yoga teacher training. Thank you, Marissa. That's beautiful. Thanks. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Yannick. What is the best way to balance Vata if you're living in a warm climate and being a Pitta Kapha in your Vata stage of life? Can you make it any more complex? Balance Vata in Vata season. You're a Pitta Kapha dosha, Vata stage of life. Sort of the same things I mentioned. You just want to find your own right balance of in a Vata stage of life. So Vata stage of life is later stage of life. Those of you who remember, we said every time has a dosha. So even our stages of life have a dosha. We're in our kapha phase as babies and toddlers. At around puberty, around is the operative word. We go into Pitta stage until about menopause, and then we go into Vata stage. Again, it's about roughly. But once we hit menopause, we tend to our tissues get drier. We tend to maybe be sick a little bit more. Some depletion happens. And so it's a Vata phase of life, no matter what our prakriti is. So you always want to stay with the things that you have found that work for you for keeping your prakriti in balance. And you want to think about regularity is key, especially with sleep. Especially with sleep. Once you hit menopause, sleep becomes more difficult. Sleep regularity is essential. Epsom salt baths are essential. Yoga is really great. Meditation is really great. Prayers are really great. Because once we hit Vata phase of life, the mind must stay calm. The mind, and even in Ayurveda says, the majority of disease is caused by the mind. Okay? So Vata phase of life, we have to keep the mind calm grounded, centered, and I would even say warm. Warm means love. Warm means connected. Warm means, right? We're not cold and lonely and bitter. We are loving and gentle. We're moved into our phase of being an elder, a mentor. I mean, I just personally, just to share, I think one of the beauties of getting to this age is I think every day, I'm going to die one day. How can I pass this along? And just to watch people find, just to be at that phase of your life, it just feels so good to watch people take up the baton and become the yogis and the Ayurvedis and all those things that we once were so keen to learn and to do ourselves. And now we get to say it's your turn. It's a beautiful phase of life. We need to rest more. They say, again, Ayurveda says that at this stage of life, we're moving from our householder phase of life to our elder phase of life. Now we're thinking about our legacy. At this phase of life, a woman would hand over the housework to the younger children. Now in their 20s, they can do it. And the idea meaning, at this phase of life, you put your feet up. At this phase of life, you spend time with your friends. You read a book. You go sit under an apple tree and meditate. You sit and observe nature and enjoy it, right? This is a phase of life for us to be more contemplative and more restful. So sleep is key. Mind is key. Meditation, prayer, whatever it takes. And regularity is key. And then I would also say lubrication, hydration. So teas, golden milk, sleep tonics. And, I think it's important to cook you could have a pitta kapha reducing meal, but cook it and add a little extra oil and a little bit more spice. Okay? So to me, a pitta kapha meal is beans and greens, mung dal and lots of leafy greens, all cooked and sauteed. Now, add a little bit of extra ghee, add some avocado, add some extra ginger. Ginger is not too inflaming for pitta. It's anti-inflammatory. And there you've got a meal. So you're playing around with the doses and the proportions of things, but I hope that's helpful, Joyce, just to give you some ideas. Sharon, I love you. I didn't see you come in. Thank you for being with us. Sharon had such a beautiful thing to say. I loved what you wrote on Facebook recently. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Yannick. And Davida, can you write the asafoetida? Asafoetida, Asafoetida, asafoetida. And hing, Hing. Yeah, good. Thank you. Okay, do we have any other questions? Oh, you are awesome. Thank you. Organic, unrefined, cold-pressed avocado oil. Good question. If anybody's found that, please pop it in. I'm so very interested in professional training. It's really great. VedaWise.com. Maureen did our training, and she's off and running. Maureen did the training in the first year, Ayurvedic Integrated Nutrition, and right away started having gatherings with her friends once a month. How fun was that? And they would learn their dosha, they would learn the 5 elements, they would learn the 6 tastes. And women of a certain age, we want to stay young and youthful and healthy, etc. So what a beautiful thing to be able to share with your friends. Now she's got a website. Now she's doing nutritional coaching. So beautiful to see that. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anna. So, Kay, Vata in menopause having hot flashes. Did I answer your question, Kay? Vata in menopause having hot flashes. Hot flashes sound like a pitta problem because pitta is heat, pitta is fire. But hot flashes is because the heat that is supposed to be in the middle, your central engine, your solar plexus, the sun is a fire, heat should be contained in the center of our body. We do the twists and we talk about coming back to the center, right? So everything is about how do we keep that fire here? In the summer, the fire moves to the periphery of the body to be released from the body, which is why in the summer we either don't feel like eating, we don't feel like eating much, or we have to have our foods gentle and easily digestible. So when we have a hot flash, what's happening is that which was grounding the fire got loose. And the fire, what does fire do? It rises, heat rises. So heat, because it got ungrounded, it got loosened from its roots, it rises. So hot flashes are a sign of Vata dosha. And they come at the Vata change of life. And Sandhis, which are the joints or when we go from the seasonal change, seasonal equinox, or the joints in your body, or the gap, mind the gap, Sandhi, whatever it might be, even we watch the planets transiting from one sign to the next, we always talk about these are vulnerable points. Kids get a lot of acne when they start their pitta phase of life. The fire element is strong. It's learning to find its balance. It's learning to find its way. And when we move into the Vata season of life, menopause gives us a lot of Vata conditions as the Vata rises. So the beginning part is where we're the most vulnerable. Then it settles, it finds its way. We also find our way with it. So for Vata dosha experiences in menopause, we really need to focus on same thing: regularity of sleep, regularity of diet, regularity of everything. If you get a massage, if you're someone who gets a massage weekly or monthly, same day, same time, always. Right? So all the things that you schedule them 3-4 months in advance. As much as you can, seek continuity, consistency, regularity, steadiness, stability. And then also for Vata dosha, this is a time of year, a time of our life, a season of our life where, believe it or not, we may put on the little extra pounds in menopause. We need a little bit more oils, and we need a little bit more of the hydrating, you might say, sweet taste. But our digestion can also change. We might have more Vata in our digestion. So again, also a little bit more spicy and appropriate spicing. Okay. So, and another thing that happens to a lot of women in menopause is the intense trainings that we did before. So maybe intense yoga classes or high intensity training at the gym. Those can tend to lead now to inflammation. So in a way, everything needs to become a little more gentle once we hit menopause. You can still go for long walks, big hikes, long bike rides, big swims. You can still play tennis, but try to do things with more gentleness, because the body is not wanting too much high intensity, too much sympathetic nervous system. At this stage of life, the body isn't able to bring itself back into rest and digest as quickly. And if we don't rest, we don't digest, we put on the pounds. So it comes back to sleep, regularity, and self-care. Okay? And I always think, the worst thing about being Vata dosha is that you can feel ungrounded. It's the debilitation, the lack of strong immunity. But the best thing about Vata dosha is it's all about self-care. It's all about sweet taste, sweet relationships, sweet thoughts, right? So the remedy for Vata is yummy. Oh, Patricia, I'm so sorry. Grief is a Vata emotion. So all of the emotions too have a taste. Sweet is the taste that balances bitter. Bitter is the taste that relates to grief and loss. Actually, the bitter taste makes us lose. It's detoxifying. It helps to release. You can take, Swedish bitters, or we take bitters for weight loss. So sweet is the opposing taste, which is so often why in a breakup we reach for chocolate or sweetness or comfort foods. So there's 2 thoughts I would have for you on this. And we just celebrated the anniversary of my father's heavenly birthday or passing. It's a long time ago now, but it's just a loss that just never goes away. And it's, it's hard. And those are times when just everything we just said about Vata in menopause, it's a time where you really have to give yourself so much love and so much care, because you're sort of re-knitting yourself back into wholeness. Your dad is half of you, and suddenly it's gone. And you've got to kind of find that wholeness again, and that takes time. So the first thing about grief is that it takes time. The second thing about grief is it requires a lot of self-love and care. And the third thing, a lot of rest. And if there's a fourth thing, it may be that you think about Vata or autumn foods and meals and self-care until you feel well again. So it might go right through the winter and spring for you. And by sweet taste, if you feel like you're craving something sweet, it may be that your emotional body is needing that soothing. And then a beautiful bowl of rice and raisins might be really nice, or rice with some steamed veggies, a rice salad. In my book, there's a beautiful recipe that I absolutely love. It's a perfect one for Vata dosha. And I think it's a Persian rice salad. But if you just look in the index of under rice, it's got yogurt and tahini and lots of lemon and mint, and it's just so, and pistachio, so it's got good protein. So, you know, just really honoring that person, because grief is really the way that we love and honor and remember the people that have meant so much to us. And then if you want, join us for our autumn cleanse, and just write to me. I'd be happy to help you out with that. Okay. Simran is experiencing a lot of hair fall. Oh, and I just noticed, I'm sorry that you put it privately, so I hope you don't mind that I said it publicly. I didn't see that. Hair fall can be, you know, what's really important for hair fall is that you keep stimulating the scalp, right? So that you get blood flow to the scalp. Keep getting blood flow. So when you brush your hair, make sure the brush touches. Massage your hair morning and night. Massage your head. When you get in the shower, massage. Really massage. Don't just try to clean your hair, massage it. Brush, 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 and massage. Now one thing that would be so helpful for you is sesame oil massage on your head 2 to 3 times a week if you can. And you can even keep that on your head as you go to sleep at night if you want to. And then, of course, there's really great tonics. If you go to Bani Botanical, if you're in the States, or, you know, if you're in India, there are some great herbs that you can take orally and that you can also use in an oil on your head. But the key is to keep that blood flow. The other key is stress. Oftentimes it's stress related. So reduce the stress, reduce the conditions of stress. And Vata dosha relates to stress. So be loving with yourself, be gentle with yourself, feed and nourish yourself well, and make sure you're digesting properly. Okay? Improper digestion is the other thing that Ayurveda says is the cause of most diseases, most imbalances, most chronic issues. So we want right digestion and right thinking, and that will go a long way to keep us in good health. So good luck with that. Angel, we'll just go for another few minutes. I have difficulty with rice, but once I began. Oh, that's a good point, Angel. So another thing about Ayurveda is we talk about, in India, they talk about old rice, and they go for rice that has been stored for a long time. It slightly ferments itself. And so, and then the other thing is that some people then like to, with old rice especially, it would soak and then be rinsed. So that's one thought. So you can rinse your rice. You could even, some people even like to soak their rice, then rinse. So thank you, Angel. That's a good point. Rinse, rinse, rinse your rice. Always rinse, rinse. There we go. Thank you. That's very helpful. But I work a few nights. So the thing about the autumn cleanse, thanks for asking that. The autumn cleanse is recorded. And every single class, we'll have one web page where we put all the replays up. We've got one location where you can find all the classes, all the replays, the yoga, the guided meditation, the booklet. It's all there in one place. So if you have to miss a class, you can watch it in your own good time. Thank you. Thanks, Vandana. And Janine, thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Coffee with ghee. What about having juice during pitta time? So it depends what you mean by juice. But juicing is okay for pitta. Juicing is cool, and that tends to be best for pitta. One thing that we often find with Vata dosha people is a lot of times they will juice in the morning, and that'll be their breakfast. And juice is light, cooling. Usually people make it with vegetables, which means it's also rough and therefore drying. And so it's not ideal for Vata dosha. So sure, if you're going to have oatmeal, something warm, oats are the best for Vata because they're also mucilaginous, help with constipation, help with elimination. So let's say you have Vata with oats with cardamom for breakfast. Sure, then you could do some juicing at 11 a.m., which is great, pitta time of day. I would just add a little bit, if you can, add a little bit maybe of coconut oil, half a teaspoon, and maybe you add a little bit of fennel or mint or something else to that, just to stimulate digestion so it doesn't rush. Oil will help slow digestion so it doesn't rush into the bloodstream and spike the blood sugar. Coconut oil will raise cholesterol. Yeah, there's a lot of people who believe that oils raise cholesterol, and there's a lot of people who believe it doesn't. I'm not sure that there's a final say on that. Sorry. Thank you, Joyce. You're the best. Left nostril. Yep, that's beautiful. Is that Irene? Thank you for being here. Good to see you. Ihane says she does left nostril pranayama to cool down during a hot flash. Excellent advice. So then you could just hold your thumb over your right nostril and inhale, exhale, left side only, because left side relates to the lunar energies in the body. Thank you. After you eat a meal, though, close left, inhale and exhale right. That will increase solar energies, and that will help with digestion. The other thing you can do after a meal is lie on your left side, because that'll slightly close the left nostril, opening the right, and that itself will stimulate solar energies. Thank you, Sally. See you later. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thanks, you guys. Thank you, thank you. Okay, I think we've got everything, all the questions answered, and it's now 10:30, which is when I wanted to end. Intermittent fasting is compatible with Ayurveda. Ayurveda was one of the first advocates, champions of intermittent fasting. Ayurveda says eat breakfast, eat lunch, eat dinner, and in between zip it. So Ayurveda doesn't love snacks, even though we give you options for snacks, because especially if you're pitta, you may get very hungry in between meals. But no eating between meals is the best. Let digestion complete before you go and start eating again. And then also Ayurveda wants people to have finished their last meal 3 hours before sleep, ideally before the sun even goes down. So as we move into wintertime, that means we've had our last meal by 5, 6 p.m., and we're not having our next meal till 7 a.m. That is already a 13-hour fast. So if you want to then go, and Ayurveda also recommends skipping a meal, a dinner once a week. Best day for that is Monday or Thursday. And then you're going from lunch Monday to breakfast Tuesday. And now you've got a huge, what is that, 16, 17-hour fast. And if you're more of a kapha person, you could take it all the way to lunch the next day. Lunch Monday until lunch Tuesday. No eating in between. That's more for kapha, or somebody who's got a stronger constitution. For Vata, they say the best fasting for Vata is breakfast, lunch, dinner, same time every day, and no snack in between. Okay? Because Vata tends to like to snack. So the best fast for Vata, because they tend to have less energy, they need to keep their energy level up, they need to keep their digestive fire regulated. Best for Vata is breakfast, lunch, dinner. That itself is considered a fast. No snacking in between. Yes, Chris, that's a great question. pH, more alkaline for pitta, because they tend to be more acidic, and that's what that means to be pitta. More heat, more acidic body, etc. Anyway, thank you. Thanks, you guys. Thank you, thank you. I'm sure we could go on and on. There's lots of great questions, but I hope that this gives you something to work with. My book, my blog, those are free or semi-free resources. Food.at.love.story on Instagram also is another free resource. The Autumn Cleanse coming up with a discount is only $39 for a whole week of classes and booklet and all that. So I hope you'll join us. I thank you today for joining us. I thank you for wanting to learn more about health and for being a beacon of light in this world. To my teachers, Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, and to all of you, Namaste. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful weekend.